Hi, it's me, Joan, Mainline Sociology. So what we've learned so far is that our Constitution was hijacked and turned into a corporation, then the fiat money system, as you remember. Well, because we already know this, we have to go back to Mr. Boniface. And he is the Pope that declared all souls belong to the Vatican. So that's where I left off. And I wanted to read to you this from Wikipedia. The Unum Sanctum is a papal bull. These words are very important, people. That was issued by Pope Boniface on the 18th of November, 1302. It laid down the dogmatic propositions on the unity of the Catholic Church, the necessity of belonging to it for eternal salvation, the position of the Pope as supreme head of the Church, and the duty thence arising of submission to the Pope belonging to the Church to attain salvation. You can look this up yourself, many things to say, but basically, this is your first middleman. All right? Not our beautiful connection to God Most High, but they hijacked it and turned it into a middleman. Why is this important? Well, if you remember from Marxist theory, we know that one system is tossed out and replaced for another one. No longer are we under a slave. We don't think we're slaves anymore, right? But we have to change our minds about that. So here is the Unum Sanctum that spells out everything, if you can read that. And as you remember, part of the Martin Luther, when he went up there and he nailed down all the complaints he had about the church and their rule, and he's saying, you're not even going by the Bible at all. And of all the complaints he had, one remains, and it's so important. That is the idea that we worship on a Sunday. Remember, I told you already there's, in this country right now, over 10,000 different denominations of Christianity. Well, Lutheran, for one example, they feel like they're free from the Catholic Church and these dictums, sanctums, whatever you want to call them, these decrees. But this whole idea is so important on so many levels. God Most High didn't give us rules, just willy-nilly. He's the God that loves us. And part of this will go into with actual biorhythms of the person that we're supposed to rest on a Saturday. That's the day of rest, biblical. So what happened and what is the connection to Sunday being this day of rest and capitalism? Well, first, let's establish that this is a hot topic for hundreds of years. So, according to the American Catholic Quarterly Review in 1883, the Sunday is purely a creation of the Catholic Church. Sunday, as the day of rest, is the law of the Catholic Church alone. The observance of Sunday by Protestants is a homage they pay in spite of themselves to the Catholic Church. So did these different denominations of Christianity, quote, quote, abandon the sanctum? You can decide. Not the creator of the universe in Genesis 2, 1 through 3, but the Catholic Church can claim the honor of having granted man a pause to his work every 7 days. Reason and common sense demand the acceptance of one or the other of these alternatives, either Protestantism or keeping the holy of Saturday, or Catholicy and keeping the holy day of Sunday. Compromise is impossible. Now we move up to 1942. The Catholic Church changed the observance of the Sabbath to Sunday by right of the divine, infallible authority given to her by her founder, Jesus Christ. The Protestant, claiming the Bible is the only guide to faith, has no warrant for observing Sunday in this matter. One denomination of Christianity is called Seventh-day Adventists, and that is the only denomination that I know of that still worships on a Saturday. But back to the Catholic Church. One of the reasons they switched to Sunday, besides to mess up our biorhythms and to get us to disobey the law of God Most High, only in the 4th century did civil law of the Roman Empire recognize the weekly recurrence, determining that on the day of the sun, the judges of the people of the cities and various trade corporations would not work. Christians rejoiced to see thus remove the obstacles which until then had sometimes made the observance of the Lord's Day heretic. They could now devote themselves to prayer without hindrance. Flash back to living there, people. They were happy just to get a day off. Saturday, Sunday, whatever, right? They knew they were slaves. They were happy to recognize the Lord's Day at all, let alone did they read the Bible maybe even and know it's Saturday. I'm going to say they did, but it's neither here nor there. It would therefore be wrong to see this legislation of the rhythm of the week a mere historical circumstance with no special significance for the church, and which she could simply set aside. Even after the fall of the empire, the councils did not cease to insist upon the arrangements regarding Sunday. Now, if you're any kind of normal, you probably learned in school all about the 10 volumes of how Rome fell. We will get to that. The short story is Rome didn't fall. It just morphed into this larger fiat false system that we live in. Now in 1883, remember, people weren't going to let this go because, there's 10 rules. On the Sabbath, you rest. It's not a difficult rule to follow. But the point is, you can read this, but the point is, people were always wondering, why is this so? And you may think, oh, it doesn't matter to me because I'm not religious, or it doesn't matter to me because, I worship, I know what I'm doing, I read the Bible myself. Sure, I go to church on Sunday, or I don't. It doesn't really matter. But if you can remember, well, not so long ago, that every store was always closed on Sunday. They set up commerce to reflect this idea of worship on Sunday. So the work week, most people work Monday through Friday. Saturday, they're running around like a chicken with their head cut off to run their children to games, to cleaning the house, to running for the groceries, doing your errands. It's always such a busy day for families. And then Sunday comes along and, oh, okay, this is my day of rest. This is my day for fun and games. Well, the Lord thy God did not set it up this way, so you could say, it doesn't matter when I rest. Still, we have all these denominations of Christianity. We have a whole system of commerce set up, so you would have to do everything on Saturday because all the stores were closed on Sunday. That's not true anymore. But for the most part, that was true for a very long time. Now, here's the rub. You think, okay, well, that just goes for Christianity. Well, not so. We're talking about 1999 right now, and I'll get very specific about this. President George W. Bush praises Pope John Paul and the promises to defend the unborn child at the opening of John Paul II's Cultural Center in D.C. The best way to honor Pope John Paul II, truly one of the great men, is to take his teachings seriously, to listen to his words and put his words and teaching into action here in America. Why is this important? Because the President of the United States of America Corporation is saying, yep, let's keep this middleman. Whatever he says goes. That's the way we worship. But it gets worse. Around this same time, in 1999, we have this Pope John Paul kissing the Quran, the book that condemns him to hell for being a Trinitarian. Whoever joins other gods with Allah, Allah will forbid him the garden, and the fire will be his abode. There will be for the wrongdoers be no more help. They do blaspheme who say God is one of three, a trinity, for there is no God except Allah. If they do not detest from their word of blasphemy, verily grievous penalty will fall on them. Basically, what this did was have the Pope say, hey, it's not just Catholicism. It's not just Lutherans. It's not just Protestants, or I like to call them Protestants. It's not just Methodists. We are hijacking every single religion on the planet Earth. So this will become important in a little while, but just to finish off, this is a decree from 2003, not very long ago. Most Christians assume that Sunday is the biblically approved day of worship. The Roman Catholic Church protests that it be transferred Christian worship from the biblical Sabbath, Saturday, to Sunday, and that they try to argue that the change was made in the Bible is both dishonest and a denial of Catholic authority. If Protestantism wants to base its teachings on the Bible, it should worship on a Saturday. Why this is important is because the enemy always tells you what they're doing. They're telling you what they're doing. If you want to worship the source of all there is, God Most High, then if you want to keep the commandments of God, then worship on a Saturday. Go ahead. We're not stopping you. But remember, they set up the whole entire system. So Rome is the middleman to God. The crown underscored that one, right? And then in the United States Corporation, they include both of those all the laws that they have. So we have this Catholic Pope saying, go ahead and worship on a Saturday. And also, we are going to include the Muslims in this situation. And so let's enter 9/11, when that happened. If you recall, the United States of America people here are like Muslim terrorists. Oh, yeah, they're the enemy. And there's some horrible, horrible stories I have about that firsthand. But to keep it on this higher level, behind the scenes, way before 9/11 happened, well, let's just take Iran for an example. In the 1970s, the Iranian people were a free people. They were egalitarian. You know, we think of now women with their faces covered in their burqas and crazy oppressed there, but that was not always the way it was. The Vatican, the Crown in Washington, D.C., all went in there and they created that situation for them. And this man that you see in the picture was very much behind the situation ever since he was little. So it's a horrible, horrible situation. So not only were people, oh, I have to read the Quran, I have to, these people are my enemy. Remember, what's the main thing that Marx told us? Whatever divides the working class strengthens the overall system, and the divisions are unbelievable. People just buy right into it. Now, this all has to do with Marx because he was very much behind this, as you can begin to see from understanding his theory. Now, here he is, and in this presentation, it said he started writing it in 1942, which I do believe. My copy in English was 20 years later, but neither here nor there, because he was very much part of it, and as we already discussed, he used this idea of Darwin and the origin of the species in his work with Engels as they discussed how they were going to tear us apart limb from limb, but mostly in our brains, right? We have to get that society out of our brains. This talks about part of how they do this. I hope to show that most modern secret societies, and especially those that practice degrees of initiation, that is the key, are really one society with one purpose. You may call them whatever you wish, the Order of the Quest, the Jason Society, so on and so forth, all these things, right? But they're all the same, and they all work toward one ultimate goal, the New World Order. Mr. Darwin and shushing you of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, thou shalt not eat of it. In the day that thou shalt eat thereof, thou shalt surely die. I have an awful lot to say about this. Now, this is what the whole thing is against, right? They do not want you to know. Our enemy does not want you to know what they're doing. If you're familiar with the concept of concentric zoning in marketing, then it's a really easy way to get this idea in your mind. If you have the largest circle, let's say that's God's realm. Inside that circle is these groups, all these groups, all these secret societies. And they're all busy telling you what to think, while the truth of what they're doing is right out there. Unum Sanctum, 1302, all souls belong to the Vatican. We have the crown and the royalty. They thought they were God, therefore they are gods. And then all these little other groups started springing up. So what we have as a situation in the United States now is an idea that we are not slaves. We're not slaves. But remember, Marx already said the only thing of value is what the people do, what we do, how we change natural resources into usable things. Like we take trees and we make them into lumber and then we build houses with them. If we did that for ourselves, like the settlers were doing in 1840 to 1870 or so, we would be fine. But there's nothing in it for the capitalists, right? So they developed this whole idea, and here we are down at the bottom. We're teachers, we're lawyers, we're all these different things, right? And we think we chose it. It's not like we thought we were slaves. This is so important to understand. And I thought this was so hilarious. I'm afraid we're going to have to let you go. We're replacing you with motivational posters. The point is, here we are at the bottom. We are dying. We are working. We are holding up this whole system. It's the same system, but we can't see it because we're so controlled. Now, if you remember in Karl Marx's theory, that the result of this situation he so aptly predicted was going to be that there is a dead labor force. Well, yes, we can think of this ultimate outcome as our minds are so programmed and we're so poisoned and we're so enchanted by this whole idea that we're not slaves anymore, that we're not dead. But when you understand that this act of 1871, the 13th Amendment changing our Constitution to a corporation, you don't have to go too far to understand that, yes, we are beasts and we are dead and we are traded on the stock market. We covered that. We are a dead labor force. Our birth certificates, the fact that we came out of the womb into the hands of a doctor, we're just out at sea, dead, owned by the corporations, and that's all. This is not something that we really knew about, but the truth is coming out. And if we're going to get ourselves out of this, we have to understand the situation that we're in first. When you begin to understand that we're assets of the corporation, that our parents signed us over to this corporation because of being signing on the line that it's that they're the informant, and okay, here you go, we get a social security number, and then we realize, hey, Rome never fell. The crown is still going. There's all these royals out there that are living off the fruits of our labor, so to speak. And then we see a picture like this, and do I really have to explain this to you? Now, I know it's not a lot of fun to learn this, but once you understand that we have been told everything, I just told you everything, right? 1302, they had the crown backing them up. There was a brief time in the United States, as far as I can tell, between 1840 and 18 until the Constitution was changed into a corporation that's held under the City of London and ruled ultimately by the Vatican, that by virtue of our ignorance, we have gone along with this. And I think I started realizing this when I saw the movie Brainstorm, and this was in 1981. It's hard to believe 40 years ago. I always say everything's 20 years ago because but it's really longer than that ago. So if you haven't seen this movie Brainstorm, this is a must-see with Christopher Walken and Natalie Wood. It's so brilliant, and it tells you everything about how they start fracturing our minds. This, in 1981, it seemed very futuristic to me, but they're flat out telling you, we're going to get into your mind and we're going to fracture you so you can't see this. Now remember, Marx said that this was going to happen. This is exactly how we're going to get you. One of the components of alienation is an over-exaggerated sense of yourself. So how do the controllers get you to do that? Well, when you have acid, oh, Pepto-Bismol is going to do the commercial, but Mom, I have a tummy ache. It's hard to, when you're sick, it's hard to think about anybody but yourself, right? Well, remember Martha, bring the Oli? When they could, as soon as they could, they invented all these fake foods. Well, this will make you very sick because your body can't use it. Your body is sterilized by these things, and we'll go over how they did that and through agriculture. But the point is that the foods that we're eating right there since 1940 are making us very sick. We have bad habits like smoking and drinking, and these things consume us. Addictions consume us, so we can't think of anyone but ourselves. So we covered that, but that's one of the ways that they get us to look inward. What's in it for me? Where's my new car? Where's my new house? Where's my doctor because I'm so sick? This is an enchantment. So to keep this short, we have a chance to break free of this. And I like this because really all of us together can do this. And there is the group called the intelligentsia, from Marx's point of view, that is giving us all kinds of help. And I'd like to help too, because where we go one, we go all. We will not survive under this false system. Don't out.